There we go. Welcome everybody to the Center for Teaching and Learning's second sandbox of the week as we prepare to start our new classes. This one will be dedicated to preventing cheating. We know that this is an issue that many teachers struggle with. Our students are there to learn, but we often remember that sometimes they're not out there to learn with the best interests in mind. And so cheating is a reality that we deal with all the time. Today, what I would like to do is, for the most part, have the floor open for people who have either questions or want to share with me or share with us, suggestions that they have either used or struggled with in managing cheating in their classrooms, whether it be face-to-face or is probably more problematic, the online function. But what I would like to do for this is I would like to start by sharing something that I came across about promoting academic integrity, which might be a good sounding board for us through this sandbox. So let me share my screen here. I found this graphic in an article that offers tips on what we can do to improve academic integrity in our classrooms. And it comes from an article that says that while we are hyper vigilant about cheating in our online classes, that the reality is students seem to cheat pretty regularly in all of our courses, and there's nothing really that special about online. Just as teachers, we are more aware of the various ways that they might cheat. So they recommend this list of 10 that I know that some of us use, at least elements of it we already use, but things that you might not have considered. We should always be talking to our students about the importance of integrity and ethics and authenticity with their students to make it personal and positive. I have worked with folks, not so much at Missouri Western, but at my earlier institutions, who really kind of relished in the investigation, the gotcha, the let's catch them cheating. And instead, we should be laying it out in front of them, saying that this is something that we should be avoiding. Most of us already have a syllabus statement. It is part of the boilerplate that the university wants us to include. So please make that part of your syllabus, especially as if you treat your syllabus as a contract with your students. For your discipline, if this is relevant, make sure that expectations about citation and collaboration are clear. Some folks create a classroom honor code that includes behavioral expectations. I've had colleagues actually draft an honor code with their class on the first week. Something that is personalized and tailored not just to their course, but to the students who are in that course. Have students pledge everything. I have had colleagues, when they used to turn in by paper, they would have to submit a cover sheet that swears that nothing was cheaty in it. Weekly quizzes, so you have divided learning opportunities in smaller chunks so that it lowers the stakes. I have online quizzes that I used to count for a lot, but then I realized all they had to do was Google the quiz questions. And for those people who were simply cheating instead of outright learning, I lowered the value of that because it wasn't worth it. Instead, I put more into the exams where they clearly had not done the reading. Give students flexibility in choosing topics and even assignments. The more individualized we become as instructors to student learning, the less likely they are to cheat because their assignments become personalized. And I can talk to you about how I've managed that in my own classroom later if you'd like. Scaffold larger assignments so that they are building the steps. Be very clear about your institutional policies about academic integrity and communicate them. We do this through our syllabus. And then apply all policies fairly, and with compassion. All right, we have to remember that students who cheat aren't out to get us. They actually don't care about us at all, for the most part, when they are cheating. And so remember that we are dealing with an open enrollment institution where our students are belabored with demands that go well beyond, in my case, their most important class, an introduction to history. They are looking to get by. And so we have to remind our students that getting by is not why you're here. Learning is why you're here. And so I want to kind of close this part by talking a little bit about enforcement. Many of us handle enforcement in a variety of ways. I know that a lot of us are not eager to get involved in the paperwork and policy morass of dealing with academic integrity violations. But one of the things that I would recommend is that you do create some standard of enforcement, but make them lesser forms of enforcement up front. So if they cheat on a quiz, whether it's written or multiple choice, don't, unless this is what you want to live by, I would recommend don't simply kick them out of the class. Give them a 0, give them a small penalty, because that lesser enforcement can get their attention. It gives them an opportunity to change their behavior. It gives them an opportunity to learn. It gives you some mercy points, which sometimes we really need. And most importantly, if you don't set your own threshold so high, you are more likely to enforce it. So start small. Obviously, if you have repeat offenders, I would recommend throwing the book, whatever book you have, at them. But free yourself up to not make it black or white, but enforce something small to encourage development. Okay, so I'll stop there just as some introductory thoughts, and I'd like to open up the floor to others who might be interested in discussing cheating, issues that they've had that might be particular to their discipline, or things that they would like to address. So I'll open up the floor to anybody.
Can I ask a question? Would you say, I think this is what you said, would you suggest as you were making these small policies, that should probably go in the syllabus, that would you put literally a first offense would be this, or would you make it more broad?
In my syllabus, and this might be a bit of a cheat, I make a broad statement, which is if you fail, or if you cheat, you will fail. So I give them the warning of what the worst case scenario is, because I'm willing to play on mercy to say, look, I know what you did. Because sometimes like in history, it's simply because they didn't cite properly, or they thought it was okay to cut and paste, which is what we get from a lot of recent high school students. And so I can say, look, I want to teach you how to do this. I'm not going to fail you. And they tend to respond much better that way. I'm afraid, Pam, and maybe this is loaded in your question, I'm afraid to give those steps. First offense, which is like in law school, we called this, you get one bite at the apple. I guess apples were an issue back in old timey days. But I could look at the syllabus and say, maybe I'll get away with it. But if not, then I know that I'll just get, 50% on that assignment. I don't want to encourage that. I want to appear benevolent, not be benevolent in that sense. But I also, and Pam, this is why I said this in the write-up, I also don't treat my syllabus like a contract. A contract is an agreement between two people who come together to promise and agree to do something. Our syllabi are pretty heavy-handed. They come from us to say, this is what's going to happen. So I don't feel like I have to carry it to the the law of the letter when it comes to academic integrity, because the university is really clear about the policy on this. Other questions or comments? Matt?
I might have yeah, thanks, Dom. I might have a question just about something I brought to Faculty Senate was the incident of multiple infractions occurring at the same time. Has anyone here had to encounter that? And if so, how might have you resolved it? Because that's my question. But the way in which I did resolve it myself was to give people another chance at the assignment, which was really just 3% of their grade.
So anytime that there's a violation, the school wants us to report it. This is part of the policy, but every one of us on this Zoom chat knows that that is a time-consuming constraint. And it's a time-consuming constraint on ours. And so, Matt, I always show that kind of individualized mercy without reporting, which does some damage. I know that if I have this one person who slipped up on my assignment, they might be slipping up on assignments across the board and doing it deliberately. Without the recording, there's no way for the university to cross-course keep a student accountable. Now, the flip side to this is I have never seen the mechanism that the university uses to record academic violations. I just haven't seen it. Kathy, Greg, do you guys know if there's a centralized way that this has been handled?
I'll speak up quick. It starts at the chair's level, and then it gets promoted up to the provost, whether it's agreed to by the student or not. That way they have a central bin over there. Now, if that's still kept in the provost's office, I'm not sure. Kathy, are you aware?
I'm kind of with you. That's what I thought, was it always went up to the chair and then the chair pushed it on farther if it needed to go any farther.
Now, I trust that Jenny probably had that centralized somewhere because she showed no mercy with students. But I'm not sure if that's the case anymore. And this might be something that we, the CTL and the Faculty Senate, should be looking into to see, hey, do we have a violation flag? I mean, my guess is if it gets to the provost's desk, Jessica's not cross-referencing it with anything. So there could be somebody in there who's in there 3 or 4 times, and we don't know if it's triggering anything.
I can certainly ask that question.
If you could, please, because I would just like to know what that process is, because part of me feels guilty when I don't report a student because I got this. I can handle it, but I'm doing a disservice to all of my faculty colleagues who might be in the same boat and would benefit from that cross-referencing. But if the cross-referencing isn't happening at all, then I feel okay with handling it the first time, but second time repeaters, definitely sending them up the Missouri.
Well, also with Matt's comment, the amount of work, time, and even it's very stressful to some people. Some of us are used to confronting people. that was our job. But you know, it is stressful to people sometimes, and students, their parents, their therapists sometimes end up giving a call to try to relieve some of that pressure from the student. And you know, it is effort on the part of faculty to actually call students out on this.
Yeah. I know in my department, if there is a challenge by a student, then we have a department committee that gets formed. So virtually everybody in the department, except our academic regs representative, gets roped into this. So I really like the intimate touch of dealing with a student one-to-one and saying, this is what you've done wrong. I want you to explain to me why what you've done is wrong. how will you guard against it in the future? And I think only once in my career have I had a student do it twice, clearly after the sit down. But that was a UConn basketball player, so I probably should have been punishing the tutor that wrote it for him. Other questions or comments or concerns? What I do want to talk about, if there are after questions, is some of the tools that we can use. I think that would help cut down on this. Okay. Greg, were you going to jump in?
Yeah, I like the one, and I use it, the one you mentioned earlier about building projects along the way. It seems to alleviate some of the recycled papers. That's another thing I had to include in my syllabus after a couple years, because it was original work, yeah, but it's been original work 4 times now.
Yes.
So, building those projects in a classroom, I think is a way to not just educate the student, but also alleviate some of these issues.
One of the things that I've done that has made a huge difference so far, and I just started it the last semester, and I'm going to keep working on it a few more semesters. And it's easier, I think, for me to do in my discipline, but there are other disciplines you can do this in. As the university has, and I'm not trying to be snarky, but as the university has relegated my discipline to essentially general studies, most of my students are not going to become majors. So I had to think about what kind of projects are they going to do in my class that they can use that will benefit them. So I have all of my students in my general studies class do a research project, an original research project, and they can do a research paper if that's what they're comfortable with. But if they're a graphics designer or if they're an animator, I let them create a documentary or a podcast for my nursing students if they want to focus on PowerPoint presentations with voiceovers about medical issues in history. I let them do that. For creative writing folks, they can write historical fiction as long as it fits the rigorous patterns of the historical research. They're allowed to create a project that more aligns with their major discipline. And once I opened that up, students really kind of took to this, and I didn't have to worry about them necessarily plagiarizing or collaborating together and submitting similar things, because it was tailored not just to their own interests, but their own majors. And it almost felt freeing to not have to worry about as much cheating as I normally do. Some thoughts about how to cut down on cheating. I'm just going to offer a few of the things that might be available to you in your classrooms. One of the things that I found really cut down on cheating was open note exams. In my history classes, where there was a great deal of memorization for coming into an exam and answering questions, I let them bring in an index card, and they can write whatever they want on there. And this really cut down on, well, nobody had a reason to bring in a cheat sheet because I let them do it. It also tricked them into studying because they would cram everything they thought they knew on this index card, which forced them to internalize some of the information. But it allowed them, and I also gave them the questions ahead of time to study. So they were really prepared when they came in. I didn't see really any sense of, they didn't know which questions were going to be on the exam, but I gave them questions to study ahead of time. But they were able to kind of pointedly prepare, and I didn't ever sense there was a need to cheat because they were able to bring that crutch with them. I do the same thing though with my online classes. I make most of their work is untimed and open note. See, for me in history, it's probably easier to do than some of the other disciplines because as historians, nothing we do isn't nothing we do isn't open note. Everything I do as a historian, I have my notes in front of me. So I let my students do that as well. And don't worry, I still have plenty of failing students. So it's really about developing better study and better prepare skills. Now, not in every discipline you can't do that, but I know that in the disciplines where if you're really concerned about them learning through memorization, let's remember that this generation doesn't do a lot of memorization. They do a lot of recall. And so allowing them to refer to their notes forces them to actually create better notes, better study prep. So I found that Open Notes has taken a ton of the cheating out of my classes. Because my class is very literate based, I also use Turnitin. For those of you who have never used Turnitin before, it was a very clunky tool 5 years ago. And Matt, I see you nodding your head. I think right now they've really hit their sweet spot in terms of not only their processing of papers, but also in terms of being able to grade from them. Turnitin will check the internet and check Turnitin itself to look for papers and phrases. And so it gives you a report that says, 80% of this paper has appeared elsewhere on the internet. And for the most part, you can chase those down if they're on the internet. And the other thing that I really like about Turnitin is like SpeedGrader, you can write right into it. But on Turnitin, there are buttons that you can simply slide over that you can create yourself. So I have about 40 different buttons that I can slide over. Instead of rewriting it every time, I can say, undeveloped thesis. Where is your evidence? This doesn't make sense. And I don't have to write it every time. I can just slide these buttons over, and it saves them across platforms. So for the literate based courses, I really like Turnitin. Even if you're not going to grade in it, students having the knowledge that somebody is looking, it will deter them. Not all of them. Some of them really think they're clever, but it will deter students from copying and pasting and recycling papers as well. The last cheating tool that I think we should talk about, if you haven't seen it already, and Matt, I'm sending a flare your way, is we should talk about our new subscription to Lockdown Browser. Lockdown Browser is a new function that is with all of our Canvas shells, and it allows us to establish quizzes and exams that lock down their computer. That when the student starts taking an exam, or that quiz, they aren't allowed to search any other resources on their computer. They can't toggle between windows. They can't take snapshots of the screen. They can't press print. All they can do is focus on that exam or that quiz until they submit it. And so it's not a foolproof, but it does show them that we are discouraging them from going around and trying to find resources elsewhere. Matt, do you want to jump in? And I will show them how easy it is to add a quiz to that.
Yeah. So basically, all I'm going to say is, if you guys check out our Missouri mwsu.mojohelpdesk.com, if you scroll down to the bottom and click on Canvas, there's some resources there for the browser lockdown. There's faculty resources and there's student resources. The students do have to download an app and install on their computer to run the browser lockdown. This is not a Canvas tool. It just integrates with Canvas for quizzes only. So basically, it's a computer application that locks down all external programs and websites. So when they launch the application, and then they're automatically prompted to log into Canvas, because that's the only URL we gave respondents to use as a launch URL. They log into Canvas and then they navigate to your quiz, and they won't be able to open up tabs or access any of the other applications that they have running on their computer. So at least if they're using a single computer, they can't access anything else. And then there's some other settings in there that can prevent them from exiting the exam and then coming back into it, or and different things like that. So Don will probably talk a little bit more about that and demonstrate that. But go check out that Mojo site, and this is brand new to us, and I'm still kind of compiling a little more user-friendly tutorials. So just give me a few more weeks to get that up and running. But this is available to use right now on your Canvas course, and it's there on your course navigation bar. You just click on that, and then you just choose a quiz you want to use the lockdown browser for to activate it, go through the settings, and hit save.
Yeah, it really is that easy. I was worried about how I was going to integrate my quizzes, and so I'm going to go in here blind to see if it works. Yeah, so you can call me a liar if it doesn't work. But on the left here, you have your lockdown browser with your list of pages here. Matt, do you know if lockdown browser has to be visible to the students for you to still?
They do not actually see lockdown browser on their view anyway, no matter what. This is
they have to go through the
faculty. This is only if you're in the class as a teacher or a TA or anything that has teacher permission, like a manager, they will be able to see the lockdown browser. Student view does not see the lockdown browser link on the course navigation bar.
And while you mentioned that, Matt, I should also point out, and I think this is new for everybody. Student view is up here now as a pair of glasses. In the upper right corner, your Zoom window might be blocking it. It used to be in our list here, but student view is just a picture of glasses now. But if we go over to our left here for lockdown browser, the first time you go in, there are tutorials. So Matt, yesterday I went through the video tutorials. The one thing that I want to warn you people about, is that there is a difference between two programs, and they're trying to push two on us right now. Respondus offers two programs. They offer Lockdown Browser, which is what we have now, but they also have something called Respondus Monitor, which we don't have yet. And Respondus Monitor it uses the student's camera to watch the student while they take the quiz or the test. And so what you do as a teacher is you can watch if you want to, but it essentially creates a log of snapshots so that you can see what they were doing through the whole quiz. And if you have any suspicions, then you can watch the video. Matt, I'm right that we don't have Monitor yet, correct?
Yeah, we don't have Monitor because that's an added expense to the university. So Jake has not purchased that. We may have it next fiscal year, but no promises. But just to give you guys an idea, we do have a handful of free licenses that we can use this spring. So if you're interested in using Lockdown Browser with Monitor just to test it out, let me know. And then we can get you set up with that.
Matt, I have one question that you probably don't have the answer to yet, but we will need an answer for it, which is, isn't Respondus Monitor a violation of FERPA? Because
that's a great idea. I don't know.
Right. So my guess is the answer to that is no, it is an extension of the classroom. So we must treat it that way. But right now, when we say on Canvas, while we're Zooming with our students, hey, everybody turn your cameras on. The general consensus in the pedagogical world is that that is a violation of FERPA to require students to have their cameras on. So Matt,
yes,
if you can sniff around on that for me.
I will look into that. Since classes are password protected, that might cover us from that, because you have to have a username and password to log into Canvas.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'll look into it though.
Okay, thank you. Because regardless of the password, we are looking into people's worlds that we might not have a right to be in. So it's something that we're going to have to consider. I'm sure Respondus has already addressed this, but I don't know what the issue will be. For us as faculty members, these videos will help us manage how we set up a new quizzes or classic quizzes. Right now, most of us are using classic, so I would recommend watch both. Preparing a quiz for use is also very helpful. And then there is a video that students can see as well. But I'm going to continue to Lockdown Browser. And it's very simple. There's only one quiz that is available for Lockdown on mine, and it's my online introductory quiz. So let's say I want to add this through Lockdown. I click on Settings, and I can leave it with Don't Require, or I can say Require, and that's where the options come in. I can set an access code. So that's, if I don't want students to get too far ahead, I can say, email me the access code when you're ready to take that. And then here, Matt, I'm going to ask you to take over with the advanced settings, because you had a specific tip about the advanced settings that I couldn't remember.
Yeah, well, thank you, Dom. First of all, yeah, the access code is optional. You know, you could actually do that now with your regular Canvas quizzes. It's up to you guys whether you want to do that or not. Oh, can we set up already existing quizzes we can use Lockdown? Yes.
That's what I'm doing right here. This one already exists.
Yep. Yeah. So any quizzes you already have, yes, you can do that. So the first option where it says lock students into the browser until the exam is completed, you may automatically just say yes, go ahead and check that box, because what that does is it makes the students submit the quiz before they can navigate out of the quiz or exit the Lockdown Browser application. Because the way it is now, like if you're taking a regular Canvas quiz, just as long as the students still have time to do this, they can actually leave the quiz and come back in and finish it. Depending on how much time you allow for the quiz to be taken, you know, 10 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever it is you have for a time frame that it's open once they start. But Canvas, Respondus here, if you click over the explanation, it recommends that you use the browser, the monitor, along with the Lockdown Browser with this, because sometimes if students have like issues with their internet, or the power goes out, or there's an emergency where they actually really have to leave, they can't exit out of the exam. The exam has to sit there and wait. Maybe the person has to leave, and then the exam will actually submit automatically without anything being answered. So you can look at those explanations and see what best fits your needs, but you can lock students into the exam until they actually submit. The next one is allowing an iPad to use to take browser lockdown exams. The iPad is the only like tablet or whatever you want to call those type of devices, mobile devices that have an app that you can download and actually use the Respondus Lockdown. Some students that may be the only source of technology they have. So you may allow iPads. The student has to just go to the iStore and download the Lockdown Browser application. And then also Chromebooks. Working here in the IT department, we see a lot of students that come in with Chromebooks needing to get on our network. So there's a lot of students out there that use Chromebooks. I highly recommend you check that box that allows Chromebooks to be used, because we do have a lot of students that actually that's their main source of a laptop or whatever, because they're usually a lot cheaper than a normal laptop, and they works better for student budgets. So at least the iPad and the Chromebook, you may want to automatically check those all the time. And then also if you're having students access outside resources that need to be, maybe they need to go to a specific website or a YouTube video or something to watch or to get information so they can complete the exam, you can tell Lockdown Browser, yes, a student can go to this specific website outside of the Canvas window, Otherwise, the browser is locked down from all tabs and other URLs. And then also, if you're doing math or some kind of a scientific where students need a calculator, you can activate a calculator, and that's a scientific or a standard calculator. So you can put that in the quiz as well. And then also, if you want to enable a printing, so students can actually print from the browser lockdown screen. Not sure why you would use that, but there may be an occasion where you need to. So those are kind of the settings in a nutshell.
You know where that printing might come in value is if anybody has an honor code cover sheet that they want an actual signature on, maybe. That's a possibility. But thank you for walking me through those. I wasn't sure about the Chromebook one, so I'm glad you laid that.
Yeah, and like I said, there are several students that use Chromebooks because they are, they work like a computer, but they just don't have they don't work exactly like a laptop. But
they're beautiful.
Students have them, so you might want to activate that setting.
I mean, they're so inexpensive that I'm really glad there's an option now for a laptop like Chromebook that students can get their paws on. Matt, I should just show them what it looks like when I save it, right?
Yeah.
Because it does put that note in the title, right?
Yeah, so hit save and close.
And so now the introductory quiz title has been automatically changed to introductory quiz requires Respondus lockdown browser. So I'm going to go to my homepage where that quiz is. And now that says that that's there. So when a student goes to look at it, I'm changing over to student view and I open it. Will it treat me like a quiz? Will it treat me like a student, or is it treating me like a faculty member?
No, it treats you like a student. And you'll be prompted to
There
go
we go.
to the lockdown browser URL page, which you can find on that Mojo site. This has been a busy week. I just haven't had a chance to compile all of this stuff in a more comprehensive place. But I'm going to work on a document that basically has all of this stuff just in one location where it's easier for you guys to share this information with your students. But there is a specific web page
I'm pulling it up right now.
that there's an application page where the student has to download the application from that page. And then there's also some faculty and student resources you can share as well.
So this may be, I don't know, maybe you've just addressed it by just saying what you just said, but let's say the student hasn't downloaded that prior to accessing the quiz. When they open that quiz, would it allow them to go and download that app after they've opened the quiz?
They can't open the quiz.
Okay.
The quiz will not open. They'll be prompted to click on a hyperlink that takes them to the Missouri Western website where you can download the Missouri Western.
Okay.
Well, we have our own specific user URL for our institution that has the app. So the students will be prompted to go to that website to download the app first. So they cannot access your quiz until they run that application.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Justin asks a good question about whether or not Respondus lockdown is on all of our computer labs.
Yes, Justin has pushed that out to the labs and also the teacher stations. And for those of you that are teaching in Fulkerson and Spratt, we're working on putting that on the teacher stations too, so you can demonstrate that during your class. I don't know if anybody here is teaching in those bigger classrooms, but yes, those are pushed out to all the labs across campus.
Matt,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Here in Looney Complex, we've got 2 computers down in our exercise science lab, which are not considered. It's the exercise science lab itself has 2 computers. Additionally, I've noticed that there are 2 or 3 computers now. I think they were I think they're phasing out the computer lab that's currently in Looney. I got the impression that they were originally going to move somebody over and make some offices there. So I don't know if that lab is still here, but there's 2 or 3 computers that are on. If you go to the 2nd floor, the hallway, by the arena, up on the 2nd floor, there's kind of like a lounge area for students. And there's 2 or 3 computers that were placed in that area this last fall. that I don't know if they're considered lab computers. I don't know who runs them or how they got there, but I see students using them.
Okay. I'll convey that to Justin and they will, I'll see how they're going to handle that, but they should be able to get that. So if anybody knows any other, like, you know, like these 1 or 2 computers laying around, sitting around, that, you know, are not considered labs, but they're just like free access computers on campus. I don't know how the IT department, how they facilitate those machines. They might be part of a run where they can install that in bulk, or maybe they have to go to those machines individually and do it. But I'll check with our IT department and make sure that we get those. Thank you, Justin.
Greg asks a good question, and I've not seen the other side of this. I don't know if you have yet either, Matt. What message does the faculty receive if a student tries to leave the quiz site?
I don't know, because I haven't had a chance to test that out yet.
So if you want to,
Well, trust me, we just got this at the very end of last semester. We went on break and I just got back on Monday. So I really literally just started dealing with this week. I wish we had this earlier in the fall semester so I could test it out. I don't know all the answers just yet, but that's a great question and I'll have to look into that. I do believe that I thought I read this somewhere that there's a log, an activity log that for any quiz that's activated during a time that the faculty can go and access after the quiz closes, like after this close date. I don't know if that's with Monitor or if that's with Lockdown Browser.
I saw the log with Monitor.
That might be just the Monitor feature. That may not be with the Lockdown Browser. That Respondus wants us to buy Monitor because they bill it as 2 separate things so they can make more money on it. But it really should be a package deal, and I wish it was, but we just don't have Monitor yet. But that might just be a Monitor thing. But let me look at that, Greg, and I'll get back to you, okay?
Any other questions or comments or things they'd like to discuss?
I just have a general comment, maybe not about lockdown, but back to the more general topic here. It seems to me like over the last 5 or 10 years, a lot of our students are sort of getting confused, I'll use that word, about exactly what is sort of, well, I'll just give you a specific example. You know, they just grab things from the internet. They go out there and they grab something from YouTube, or they grab something from some website that they look up, and they don't cite any of that material. You know, the whole, you know, they're whether they're making a PowerPoint or they're doing some kind of a lab project. There seems to be this feeling that you can grab things from anywhere and not cite it. And I'm just wondering aloud if other people other than me are experiencing that on a heightened level, that we've sort of forgotten how to do that.
Mark, if I can address it, I think that this is, you're not alone. You're definitely not alone. This definitely fits into a category that I've called non-egregious plagiarism, where they're not trying to pull something over on me. They're just not good at what they're doing. And I've really noticed it as the high school teachers' demands for satisfying state requirements increase, the less time they have to teach the nuts and bolts. And so it has come to us. It's here. And so it is just something that we are definitely going to have to teach and sadly do some hand-holding on. Now, if folks are cheating and they don't understand, or let me rephrase this, if they are cheating, then we have to address it. But I really feel like most of those instances, it is not malicious or deceptive. They just think because information is out there, it is mine. And we have to break them of that. And unfortunately, 10 years ago, that was definitely done in the high schools, and they're just being asked to do too much. So now we are as well.
And Dom, just to piggyback on that, Turnitin. If you do use Turnitin and you properly cite your sources, then plagiarism percentage is very low.
Yeah.
So, but I know that young kids today don't learn how to properly cite sources in high school or even in college, the earlier years. It's taken me a long time to learn that. And then the rules change all the time too, for academia and whatever. But Turnitin, when you properly cite your sources and Turnitin, that does help a lot with the plagiarism. So, otherwise, it'll show that it's plagiarism and the percentage may be really high. They just didn't they just didn't cite their sources correctly. But using Turnitin, because we actually pay for Turnitin, and anybody can use it for everything. I know a lot of faculty that use it for every single assignment they have, whether it's little small stuff or big essay stuff. Telling students to use, what is it, OWL, I think is, or that Purdue, there's a lot of sources out there that, I remember when I went to college, a lot of my professors would point us in the right direction of, follow these, like the OWL or the Purdue sites that have really good examples of how to cite sources for like web sources.
They're still using it.
That's always a big thing, is the web sources. The web is not a free resource. Wikipedia is not a free web source. I mean, you still have to cite your sources where you got it from, URLs and the dates and those kinds of things. So, but if you cite your sources properly, I know that Turnitin, if it goes through Turnitin just fine, then you're good to go. But it's a good way to learn how to cite your sources too.
What I'll do with that Turnitin sheet or Turnitin report is, if a student is doing something egregious, I'll have them come into the office or I'll show them through Zoom. But just to show them, it highlights everything that appears somewhere else. And so all I have to do is show them and say, look, the white stuff is you. That's the original stuff. But 80% of this is highlighted. It's somebody else's words. And that usually puts them back on their heels to say visually, oh, that looks awful. And so that helps both quantify but visually show them the difference. But Mark, you're absolutely right. I'm seeing this uptick, and I warm myself in my chilly office with the white flag of surrender, and just take this as this is part of my teaching now.
So I'm seeing a lot of direct, like as we made the transition from exams that I was giving in class to direct lifts from their textbook. Where they're not necessarily copying and pasting, but you can tell because they're taking things that they're slightly out of context. Mm-hmm. And so you were talking about making things open book. I've made them open book. But the problem is they're copying. So there's two problems. One, they're copying, but two, you can tell they're copying because what they're putting isn't quite contextualized right for the questions. And this is where I struggle, because this is a resource that I've actually given them and said, it's an open book test.
Yeah. So they're not cheating. They're performing without integrity.
Right. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's okay that you have access to that, where I've kind of taken into account that, and I'm going to start using the lockdown browser, but I've taken into account the fact that they have access to all these things. And the reality of the situation is, when they're out in their careers, they're going to have access to these things, but they still have to appropriate them both in the right way, meaning giving credit to the people that they're supposed to give credit to, and be in the right context, or it's still a wrong answer. And sometimes I'm like, this is copied and it's wrong. Like, is this cheating? Like,
yeah, no, it's just stupid.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments on how to deal with some of that. And I saw it huge this last semester. I think Kathy was the one I had students who all went to the same computer lab. One student took the test while 4 of them were gathered around.
Yeah.
So and I don't know what to do. I mean, I'm frustrated as all get out, because I don't know what to do about some of those kinds of things.
Can we put fake cameras up in the room? I mean,
well,
I know
all of the labs are already monitored. I mean, they all say you're monitored,
but they don't work.
Okay. Well,
I wish our students were
already fake cameras.
Yeah.
But you know, some of these things, I just don't know what to do. And it exploded last semester, in my opinion. Well, in the past, even when I had some of these classes, like if I was going to give the exam, I'd give the exam in a computer lab where I could proctor it.
Yeah.
But the lag of proctoring has just been massively
And
explosive.
Respondus Monitor is not going to change that, because right now I'm looking at my phone and I'm also looking at my keyboard, and you can't see that on my camera.
You know, what Justin was talking about, I've talked to Matt about this. Canvas does a poor job of allowing you to inspect what students do during, and now I don't know if that's going to be improved with the new features they're adding, but yeah, Moodle had its issues, but it did provide you opportunities to look at blocks of time for students, blocks of times for events they were working on, IP address, so you could see if they were beehiving, sitting around one computer and then trading off on the exam. But then it comes down to the point of, are the faculty comfortable, and bring them in for that discussion. And I think all these instances, you know, Turnitin.com, I had a student get 90% from a faculty. I looked at it, I said, yeah, it's plagiarized.
Yeah.
He was in tears, but what he did was he gave it to his old English professor, and they ran it through Turnitin.com. So it was in the system, so it all came back. And, you know, it's a conversation you got to be comfortable in making and figuring these things out. But, you know, I'm just not as pleased with Canvas and being able to find some of these things as I was with Moodle. My opinion, anyhow.
Yeah, Canvas has some analytics that you can run for student reports, but they're not as, it seems like it just doesn't give you what you want to see.
It's not granular.
It gives you some raw data, but it doesn't really, because I have to do a lot of participation verification for like in the registrar's office and financial aid, and sometimes it's kind of difficult. And now the Canvas is coming out with a new analytics tool. It actually makes it even harder to figure out what students do, because it doesn't show me what I want to see.
Yeah, it's worse. It's
like it has all these bells and whistles, but yet when you really get down to it, it's like the stuff I really want to see, I can't find. Now, as an admin, I can get in and see student track records, but it takes a long time to sort that data out, because I can get in as a student or into a student account, and I can see every time they log into Canvas and what links they go to. It doesn't give me a time frame, but at least I can see where they're at. But it's a very tedious process to filter out, because it goes to every single course that they go to in Canvas. So if they have 4 or 5 courses, you know, in a semester, I have to filter out a specific course. But you're right, Greg. Canvas doesn't do a great job with the analytics and trying to find some of that raw data. You know, and it's really hard to prevent cheating in online classes too. I mean, with Respondus Monitor, I know that, I don't know if they require this or not. I know with Remote Proctor now, to go through the setup process, you actually had to take your webcam and scan your room. So, and that was all recorded. So before they even took the exam and had access to it, they had to scan their environment to show the person that's watching it or going to review it later, that there were no other resources or other people in that room, and that web camera was on all the time. I haven't had a chance to play with Monitor yet because we don't have it. I don't know if that's, I think there's something similar that Respondus does. I know Remote Proctor now did that to set that up. They had to scan the room. So that helps a little bit, so you can see what the environment is around the student, just to kind of help address that. But it's really hard to prevent full-fledged cheating, 100% with online classes or doing online exams.
Kathy, you wanted to get in?
Well, I was going to go back to one of the things that Justin was saying about they're copying the stuff from the book. A lot of these students that I'm seeing anyway don't know how to put things into their own words. You tell them to find something in the book and they will give it to you word for word. And I've done this in class, and I'll say, put it in your own words, and they cannot do it. they're so used to taking somebody else's words and using them. And that's one of the hardest things to break them of.
And that comes with just simple confidence.
Mhm.
You know, they have to crack their own imposter syndrome of, you know, the book is smarter than me. Of course, the book is smarter than all of us. So how did that person get to that point? It starts with getting comfortable with your own language. And it's kind of like breaking them like a horse to get them comfortable with their own intellectualism.
So one other strategy that I'll share that I've used, I use a lot of question banks where there's multiple versions of questions for my online courses. So I think that's for people out there. It's long and time consuming to write that.
But
Because
when
you
it's
have to try to
done,
make them equal in difficult, not only equal in content, but equal in difficulty, which is the real trick, I think.
it's but once it's done, that's a
Yeah.
really it's a really nice function because it gives you a lot of flexibility
Yeah.
Across the terms.
Yeah. But I would just share that with, that way, when one student is sitting down with and taking it while 4 others are watching, they're not getting all the same questions. And I usually have some questions that are universal, you know, but I'll have sections of the exam where they're getting 3 out of 5 or 3 out of these 6, you know.
Excellent.
I had a question on the Moodle versus Canvas because I've talked to Matt about this before, but I used to be able to, when a student uploaded a file, whether it's a PDF or an AutoCAD drawing or an Excel file, I had the history of there. I had the time it was created and the name of the user ID of the person who created it. And I'd like students who would turn something in that was created by a different student in the course at the same time as the different students' exam thing. But with Canvas, I have to download everything to attach, and it was created the second I downloaded it. So it gives me no information about the history of that file. And in terms of students copying sources, I had a student who the writing just didn't sound like them. I didn't have Turnitin, or I didn't know I had Turnitin. So I just picked a sentence out of there and searched for it on the internet. And everything but the intro to one sentence in the middle of this document was word for word out of there. And, but it was their source. They listed 2 sources. I don't know why they listed the second source. It's like, well, this isn't plagiarism because I guess you're saying that this entire thing is a quote, but it doesn't meet the intent of the assignment. So you get like 1 out of 10.
So if you don't have Turnitin, I'll share this one little tip with you. It's slowly going away, but if their apostrophes don't curl, it's almost always plagiarized. It's cut and paste from somewhere. And I've never told my students this because I don't want them going back and changing it. But if the apostrophe is straight, now some programs they write them straight and it's not a big deal. But if your hackles are raised, like, boy, all of a sudden they're a graduate student level writing and those apostrophes don't curl, they're just straight, they've cut and pasted. So keep that quiet. Just share with your teacher friends.
I have a couple questions about Turnitin because I really haven't used it. So Turnitin is not something we access through Canvas. Where do we access it?
It is through Canvas. Can I show you how to create a quick assignment on that real quick?
That would be great. Well, I guess my question is, yeah, if you could show us how to create an assignment, is it something that if we create the assignment in that way, I can use it for test questions as well as full-on papers? I thought I heard you say, is that correct?
You can use it for anything that's written.
Okay. So if I give an exam and it's like, here's my prompt, and then they have to write the short answer to it, it'll scan that.
That's how I use it. I have all my short answer assignments and all of my essay exams are through Turnitin.
Do you have to have your questions separated? Because like when I write an exam, I'll have multiple choice and then I'll have short answer and then I'll have, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Do I have to create separate assignments with the short answer, or can I have it just scan the, will it scan the assignment that and just omit the multiple choice and
right.
only look at the part that's
So the way that you would do it is you have them answer the questions in a separate document.
Okay.
And they upload it.
Okay.
So I'll have multiple questions in an assignment. Let me pull it up real quick. Share my screen. So I have this reaction quiz. I'm going to go into the edit settings. I put all of the prompts in the text box. And then when you scroll down for submission type, you can do no submission, online, on paper, or external tool. So select external tool, and then you click on find. And you scroll down to turn it in, and you select that. And so what this does is it automatically turns it into a Turnitin assignment. Set your dates and save. And so what it looks like on my side is an inbox waiting for assignments to come in. So actually, let me, I have my high schoolers turning in their final exams today. So let me show you that real quick, what it looks like on my end. We are all in the circle of custody of these assignments. This is not a FERPA violation. So here's the exam. They have their prompt. They write an essay. It shows me the similarity scores. So Sienna, there's nothing that was found anywhere else. So hers is free of plagiarism. Talia, she has a tendency to overquote. So I'm going to pull her up so that you can see what it looks like. Oh, can you see it?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think it's coming up. I can see half of it now.
Okay. So if you look over to the right, there is, you might have to move your Zoom box, but if you look to the right, there's a calculated number of 67%, and it highlights where they find sections elsewhere. So she quoted the Foner textbook. It all came up.
When you chose the document, most of the screen went blank.
Did it?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can share it still. Final exam, Feedback Studio. So when I opened it up, do you see this westward expansion
Yes.
at top?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So when I opened this up, there was this number 67 shows the report. This shows where it has found all of it elsewhere. Now, this textbook is very popular, so students have probably borrowed from it a lot. So if you look at her paper here in gray, and she's an egregious quoter. I've actually had to work with her on her plagiarism this semester. But she has this big, long quote from the Foner textbook. She's citing it properly. It tells me that's where it came from. If I click on this check mark, it gives me my pre-programmed buttons. So I have a category of just the most frequent buttons I use for quick final exam grading, but I also have something called commonly used. And these are all these buttons I can put anywhere. Hey, you didn't cite this phrase. I can just drag it over. And some of these are ones that I've created myself, like expel. I want you to explain more about this. And when they get it, they can click on it and they can see here. I can add more to it. I don't know what this means. I hope she doesn't check in on this in the next 5 minutes. But this is waiting for her to see.
So I'm just gonna pick like number 14 there. Because obviously when you paraphrase it, if you're paraphrasing, there's only so many ways to say some things, especially if they're, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I'm not worried about her. Everybody knows John O'Sullivan created this. Let me rephrase this.
Right.
Very many people know that John O'Sullivan created this phrase, but let's say it was suspicious to me.
Right.
I can click on the 14 and say, oh my gosh, she got this from Cassie Honors America History Blogspot. And I can go to that link and pull it up.
So basically, this is just highlighting it, saying, look, this is here.
Yep.
Are you worried about it, right? And it's making, it's just highlighting something to say, look at this and see if you're concerned.
Yep. And since she's quoting properly, I don't like that she's quoting this much, and I've tried to work with her on it, but she's not doing anything wrong here other than hiding behind somebody else's quoted words.
Right.
Now, there is one limitation here, is that if it's submitted as a college paper, let's say whatever was associated with number 7 was really bad. If it comes from a paper, you can't see it because FERPA prohibits me from breaking into College Station High School's chain. But it does allow me to contact the owner of that paper, and it's that teacher. And if I'm really desperate to get at it, I can send an email to the teacher of that to say, hey, I really would appreciate it. And they can say no. But I have had people reach out to me before saying, can I take a look at it?
So now that she submitted this paper, her paper will go into the database. So if somebody copied hers,
Yep.
it will show up.
So I've had students take my online class and fail because they just drop out, and they come back and they say, hey, I've done some of these assignments already. May I recycle them because it's their intellectual product for this class? I give them permission to do that. And you'll get a report that says 90% because they might have changed a few things, but it's theirs. But what's cool about it is if you say off to the right, it'll say this comes from a paper from Missouri Western. If I click on it, it will show me that student's paper and say, oh yeah, that's the same student.
So this says 67% match, even though she cited everything appropriately.
Yep.
It's still a 67. So it's not telling me whether things are cited appropriately. It's just telling me that they're there.
That they're there.
It's going to say 67% match. If she doesn't have Fauner here, it'll give me the same 67% as if she does have it.
Actually, it'll probably give you, if she doesn't cite Fauner, it's probably going to go up to about 69, right?
Yeah, because there's less words, but yeah.
Exactly. But what I can do with this is I can write her and say, look, you're citing properly, but 67% of this is somebody else's words. What can I do to encourage you to start developing your own voice?
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like it. And the grading function is really nice because I'm not writing the same things over and over again, and the students can see these buttons when they go in.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Any other questions about Turnitin while I have it open?
On textbooks questions where it might take 2 or 3 sentences to answer, I find that like 75% of my class will all get the same answers. I think they're off Chegg or something.
Yeah.
They're posted for that textbook. Will this pull up anything that's been posted to Chegg as a solution?
If Chegg publishes it on their website, it will pick it up.
Okay, because I mean, Chegg will show me some stuff, but then it'll gray out the rest.
Yeah.
So I usually just assume if everybody's got the same answer, and usually about half of them are wrong. I don't know who posts these things on Chegg, but for engineering technology, they don't have the right answer. They've either got something slightly out of context from the textbook close to the right answer, or they misinterpreted the question. They didn't read the textbook. Somebody just made up an answer. And in construction, a lot of words mean the same thing. So context is everything.
But Wes, you're probably not alone in having students that submit this, and they're probably in the Turnitin generator as well. So both it'll be picked up by Chegg, through Chegg, or through other student papers. And students will never, I mean, I shouldn't say never, but I've never had a student say to me, nuh-uh, you can't prove it's in that paper from before. All I do is I show them this highlighted screen and they say, okay, I see what's going on here.
And I don't really mind them doing that. I feel like I'm just not going to make homework part of the grade anymore if nobody's actually going to think about it.
Yeah. So I
do love it when I see somebody, it's like, I can tell they didn't read the book. They got it all out of my lecture and it's all in their own words, and it's not really grammatical.
Mm-hmm.
It's not perfectly clear, but it's like, it's real.
Absolutely. Well, we've hit our 2 o'clock mark. Thank you for staying over. I apologize for going over, but I thought we were covering some good ground. I want to close with a little bit of a pep talk, and just as a reminder that, don't put so much pressure on yourself to catch cheating. They're all going to beat us. You know, we're never going to catch them all. You're still a great teacher, even if somebody has pulled one over on you. I have a few colleagues, one in particular, who spends way too much energy on detective work, and I want you to spend more time on your teaching work. So give up the ghost on perfection, but let's do what we can to teach our students about not cheating instead of dedicating our careers to catching the cheating. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. If you have colleagues who are interested in seeing this, I will post this on the CTL website and the CTL YouTube channel. So thank you all for participating. If you have any questions, comments, or follow-ups, please reach out to me. I'd love to hear it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.